Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic week. And just want to show you guys, there's a couple of these snakes they shed out. So this is the beautiful Burmese python. It's a pearl, so it's the hypo and the albino mixed together. She is going on 2.5 years old, feeding her every 10 to 14 days. And she's basically on very, very gigantic rabbits or half-pound rabbits, whichever one that I can get my hands on. And this girl is super sweet, super docile. She just shed out today, and finally get to show you guys her coloration. So she is definitely getting some good size on her. I'd say she's about almost 6 feet, if not a little bit longer, but I think 6 is I think she's more around 6. So yep, a lot of people are like, there's no way she's 2.5 years old, but she is, I promise you, and I don't overfeed her. I've tried. Some people say that, I say that as in I'm not trying to like pump her full of food, but I have tried to feed her 2 times in a week, and she just doesn't eat. She will eat when she wants to, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of Burmese owners have said that they feed their snakes 2 meals at once or twice within 7 to 10 days, and I've tried. I know I was feeling a little guilty thinking that so I don't have a 10 or 12 foot snake at 2 years old, that I must have been doing something wrong. So I've offered her, not a lot, but a couple of times I've offered her 2 meals in one sitting, and she just won't eat. So when it's her time to get big, she'll just get big. But I love the colorations on her. She stayed very vibrant as she's getting older. Very nice yellows, nice whites down her side, and a really, really nice all white belly, which is really awesome. So if you guys are looking for a really nice Burmese at a good price range, I would definitely suggest to get a pearl. So I do feel bad for people that live in states that cannot own these. I've had nothing bad to say about owning a Burmese other than they're a little hissy. But she's never bitten me or tried to bite me, but she definitely acts like she will. We're getting some pretty big storms in right now, and I've heard that sometimes storms can kind of throw off their attitude a little bit, but not noticing anything so far. And we'll put her back, and so you can see she's got some good size on her, and we'll get out some of the snakes. So I did add some lighting into the cages over on the boas, and I peeled off the back strip of them because it's 3M tape, and I guess the humidity pushed down or didn't stick very well. So I got to go in there and figure out how I'm gonna. You can kind of see the string of the lighting, like right there, is kind of hanging down. So I have to figure out how to get that pushed back up. I do like to use. Sometimes I do use tape, but I know tape's not a good thing to use in your snake cage if they can get wrapped up on it. So I really don't know what to use on that. I'm thinking about maybe like a staple gun, hit it with some staples. But I don't know if the staples would go into that PVC very well. So if you got any ideas, let me know. On the other ones, the 3M's still holding, but I know the humidity is going to break it down, and it's not going to work very well. So why is this thing all twisted? Well, there we go. So let's get the other snakes out. All right, so this is the albino boa, and I've had her since she was a baby. I've had all my snakes since they were babies, just to throw that piece of information out there. So she was extremely vibrant. All albinos are super, super bright as their babies. Very nice yellows. Their tails and their saddles are so bright with oranges and the whites and stuff like that. But as you can see, as they get older, they definitely fade out, which kind of sucks. So a lot of people like to get into the other types of albinos. There's a lot of them with a lot of added stuff to them. Motleys, jungles, everything else under the sun that brighten them up, gives them more color. But if you're going to get into the basic albino, they look so, so bright as their babies in the display case if you're at a show or seeing them on Morph Market. I'm not deterring anybody to get one because they're phenomenal. I still like her. She's still very pretty and a super sweet snake, red eyes. And but they're a lot cheaper, so they're like $200, $250, which is a really good price. But I just know in the long run that they will fade out. But it's funny because when I get her out and I get the normal out and I'll get the Argentine out, you know, when the Burm was smaller and the anacondas were smaller, I thought these were like big snakes. And then now when I hold them, they're like limp noodles because they're big. I mean, they're big-ish. I'm not gonna say they're gigantic, but they really have no strength on them compared to the Burms and the anacondas. It's just like, oh, okay. So I mean, having these before they grew up, I was like, man, these things are so big. And then it's just kind of funny because they're not at all. So I know these could be a lot larger. I feed them large rats every 3 weeks. 3-ish weeks to maybe a month, which is what I'm told I should be doing, although, you know, I take a lot of stuff from the internet with a grain of salt, but boas get very fat very easily in captivity. They get overweight extremely quickly, so I'm trying to avoid that, and then the older they get, the lazier they get, so they just put on the weight and then they just sit in their cage in the corner and they don't do very much and then they just get fat. So just trying not to get any of my snakes obese or have fat pockets, because boas are, like I said, very, very easily to get fat. So I do take them out quite often. I handle them, try to get them a lot of exercise, and then I feed them, you know, appropriately when I feel that they're supposed to be eaten. So no fat deposits, no wrinkly tails or anything like that on any of my snakes. Hopefully it stays that way, but we'll see. But she's still a good size. Like, that's still, like, she's a decent size, and she's, you know, 2000, I think it's 2017. So they're not breeders. They're not pumped full of food to breed. They're just pets. So having them not be gigantic monsters is perfectly fine with me. And I don't need a big boa because I have the Burms and the anacondas. So if I want a big snake, instead of risking the health on these girls, I have those. So it works out for me. So if you guys want huge snakes, I would suggest not pumping your boa full of food to get a gigantic animal, because you can get a Burm or an anaconda or a retic or whatever that do have very good temperaments, and you won't risk their health. Well, you can't, but that's for a different story. So we'll put her back, we'll take out the other snakes. Alright, so this is just the common boa. This is not to be confused with the red-tail boa. So this has no morphs, not het for anything. It's just a plain Jane BI or BCI. And she looks really good, nice tail on her. Really nice body on her, good shape on her body. And I'd like to show the head to you guys because she is a pretty snake. There we go. Kinda, maybe, if she wants to. There we go. So I've had, this was my very first boa that I've ever owned, and I'm glad I got her. So if you guys are interested in getting into boas or wanting a nice boa but you're not wanting to drop a ton of cash, you can get a common boa for $100, probably less. And I would strongly suggest getting a baby, because if you get one that's older from like a rescue or Craigslist, you have no idea what the health is. You can work on the temperaments with them, and they can be super docile animals. You can see her tail right here. So a lot of people confuse these with red tails, and this is a pet trade name. So there is a true red tail, but this is not it. So even though the tail looks a little reddish, the true red tails have like blood red tails, and they got a lot of other stuff going on with them that make them a little bit special. But I really like the commons because, well, I mean, other than they look fantastic and the temperaments are very nice, this is the most commonly found snake, just like this, is if you would go anywhere in Central America all the way down to deep South America. You just walk around in the jungles, you probably stumble across one that looks just like this. So I think that's really cool to have like a wild type, and one that you're like, hey, yeah, this is one that would be the one that you would find most periodically in the wild. There are morphs and stuff in the wild, but you know, just cruising through the jungle, you'd probably find a million of these, which I think is pretty cool. And to own them, it's kind of like a cool story to tell people, because on the morphs, it's like, I'd say most of the morphs, it's like, yeah, you got to put this, this, and this, and this, and this to make this. So it's just kind of like a genetic inbreeding and you know, all this crazy stuff that we do as humans to make them look like that. But just to have one like this, it's kind of like, you know, it's cool to just say I have a wild type. So she's going kind of crazy right now with the bright lights and stuff like that, and she's just kind of curious. She likes to go up really high on stuff. Like when I got her out, she was trying to climb on this big lamppost that's to the side of the camera. But, you know, a lot of people, when they look up like that, a lot of people kind of get nervous that they have something wrong with them or like stargazing, but I promise you she's perfectly fine. She's just, there's a lot of light and a lot of commotion going on with her. But it's just a gorgeous snake, and I feed her the same as the albino. So we'll put her back. Alright, so here's another wild type snake that you would just find out in the natural open of the rainforest, the jungles, or anywhere else down in South America. It's the Argentine boa. This girl is gorgeous. She is my most defensive snake. She will not hesitate to bite you or light you up if you try to stick your hands in her cage. Now, I don't want to jinx myself, but she's never bitten me outside of her cage. I've been bitten by her quite a few times in the cage. So I always tap her head with a snake hook gently or rub it across her body to let her know that I'm here. But even then, when I've done that, she still bit me. It's not hard. It's just kind of like a defensive bite. None of it was from a feeding strike with a wrap, which is good. So I kind of take her out halfway, and then when she's out halfway, or I let her come out on her own, she calms down. But when she's out, she's a phenomenal animal, and I've not had her hiss or act weird when she's out. But that doesn't mean she won't, because snakes can be can get triggered a little bit from some stuff, especially if they're a little bit more defensive than others. But love her colors, and her tail looks phenomenal. So this is a 100% pure Argentine. A lot of people do crossbreed them with the normals, IMGs, and sometimes the true red tails to get the more of the, I guess, more boa-ish style tail with a little bit more redder, adding some of the saddles in there. And if you add an IMG with this, they're dark already, so you add IMG. If they get the IMG gene in there, then it gets them very, very dark. But I don't know why people crossbreed Argentines. They're gorgeous the way they are. There should be no reason to add anything else into them, but other than a Max Pink. So if you got the Max Pink line, and then these, but again, they're both Argentine to Argentine, which is not a problem. But she's getting big. She's a good size. All four of these boas over here, they do need to eat soon, probably on the next video. Just want to show you guys these snakes. You haven't seen them in a while, and they're doing very, very well. So she shed out probably a week ago. She's growing. I have heard, obviously I've never owned adult-ish or monsterly huge snakes, but I have heard and seen some pictures, obviously relative to how they're fed, that the Argentines do get a couple feet bigger than the common boas. They can be more heavy-bodied, but again, I've seen some massive regular common boas that were pumped full of food, and those are, 9-10 foot monsters. And then, so I think these can get 10-11 feet. I've heard they can get like 80 pounds, which I highly doubt, because like a big anaconda is like 80 pounds. Well, they can get well over 100, you know what I mean. But 80 pounds on an Argentine, that's ridiculous. That's huge. Not saying they aren't, but I've never seen one on a scale. So, like I said, things that I see on the internet, I take for a grain of salt unless there's a tape measure on them and there's an actual scale that shows the weight. But that's neither here nor there. So I just want to show you guys these snakes. They're phenomenal. I say this all the time. I highly suggest getting an Argentine. They're only getting rarer and rarer and more expensive just because the breeders are very limited and not a lot of people keep them. And they're endangered. They're on the endangered list in South America. So the importation is mixed. I know you can get them in Canada and the United States. And like I said, there's only a handful of breeders. So I don't know, maybe I could be a breeder if I can get a male. But obviously she needs to get a little bit bigger before I would even try. But we're not pushing her to any limits to try to do that because we don't want to risk her health or any health of the other snakes just to breed and make some money off of them. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And I'll see you guys on the next one.